Okay, so part two of mental health first aid. So we're on to signs and symptoms now of panic disorders. So signs and symptoms of panic disorders. Person will be anxious. They may suffer panic attacks. They have the rapid heart rate to go along with it, hyperventilation, dizziness or feeling faint or lightheaded, feeling hot and sweaty or having cold sweats, pain in the chest, shaking and trembling. So much like anxiety, panic attacks, panic disorders, there's an overlap. General anxiety can develop into this as well. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. These are all branches of very similar stuff. Of course, they're not the same, but there can be overlaps, and some people can have a couple of these disorders, if you like, or mental health issues. So what is OCD? OCD is an anxiety disorder where an individual has one or more obsessions. To cope, they develop compulsions, which may be seen in form of rituals. So we mentioned this earlier. It could be somebody who, for instance, they have to change their shoes and put them in a certain spot. It could be that they wear their favorite pair of socks. It could be that they have everything lined up in their house before they leave. It can be very extreme kinds of things. The key thing being really that they get very anxious and stressed if these things are not carried out in a particular manner. And they may not even be able to get outside the door if this doesn't occur for them in the right order. So causes, risk factors may include chemical imbalance in the brain, genetics, previous traumatic experience, stress, and infection. So signs and symptoms of this would be, so signs are, what you see: excessive cleaning and hand washing, ordering and arranging things, repeatedly checking on things, locked doors, is the oven off, compulsive counting. Symptoms would be what do they look stressed? They could be shaking, trembling, just not looking like they're thinking straight, but very very anxious. Post-traumatic stress disorder, previous incident. This is a mental health condition that is triggered by a terrifying event. So it can be something that's happened in the past, can be something that's happened presently. Causes are experiencing, witnessing an extreme violence, an attack, etc. Sexual assault, involvement in an event such as a severe car accident, road traffic accident, where the person has been involved themselves or a family member, or a traumatic birth. The signs and symptoms of PTSD would be what you see. So tremors of the hands, the person has diarrhea, digestive problems, they have pain in their stomach, muscle tension, shaking, trembling. The person may have, they may drink excessively, smoke excessively, overeat, tension, irritability, self-neglect. So just looking like they're disheveled, not looking after their appearance, and the way they dress, etc. Symptoms: they may have flashbacks, nightmares, or insomnia, so they can't sleep, a feeling of being constantly overwhelmed. They then start to become withdrawn and isolated, racing thoughts, and confusion. So we just covered common mental health conditions. So recapping, so it's everything from OCD, panic disorder, anxiety disorder, panic attacks. So all those conditions. What is depression? The causes, risk factors, signs and symptoms. What is panic disorder? Risk factors, signs and symptoms. Generalized anxiety disorder, causes, risk factors, signs and symptoms. And then finally, OCD and PTSD. So harmful coping strategies. So what do people do to cope with these conditions? And very often they're harmful. The aim of this section is to provide learners with an understanding of the different harmful coping strategies and what assistance is available. On completion, you will be able to list the harmful coping strategies, explain the different coping strategies, and signs and symptoms of each. So harmful coping strategies. What are harmful coping strategies are you aware of? Substance misuse, self-harm, eating disorders. Substance misuse, drinking alcohol, taking drugs, smoking cannabis, harder drugs, cocaine, heroin, self-harm, somebody cutting themselves, just marks on their body from self-harming, eating disorders such as overeating, bulimia, anorexia nervosa, body dysmorphia. Substance abuse. You will be able to define substance abuse at the end of this module, give examples of the commonly misused substances, outline short and long-term effects of substance misuse, outline how an individual who misuses substances may be recognized, and identify an organization to which an individual who misuses substances can be referred to. So what is it termed? What is it substance abuse? It is the continued misuse of any mind-altering substance that severely affects a person's physical and mental health, social situation, and responsibilities, and the NHS. So this is the terminology they have phrased to put on what substance abuse is. So what are the commonly abused substances? So obviously, alcohol would be a big one. Of course, it's really misused here in this country, and unfortunately part of our culture. But that is changing definitely. Recreational drugs, prescription medication, that's huge. We're not even sure about how big that is. You can see in places like the States where opiate crisis is huge. Sniffing glue, aerosols, cigarettes, and coffee. What are the impacts of substance abuse? Well, it's going to affect productivity. So the person is going to become productively bad or poor. They may become absent a lot from work. They then become socially withdrawal. They're not mixing with friends and family. The financial concerns. So the financial concerns they already may have in their life. So to escape, they're going to use substance abuse. This, of course, puts pressure on all kinds of relationships, whether it be in work or at home, and increases the risk of other mental health conditions. So depression, the flip coin of that is anxiety. Then a person can become paranoid or obsessive OCD. Increased risk of physical health problems, of course, because now they're abusing their body. They're maybe taking in too much alcohol, drinking too much, smoking too much. So there's a direct knock-on effect. Increased likelihood of dependence on more harder substances. So what would you see in a person who is abusing a substance and the symptoms? So changes in their physical appearance would be a big thing. They just don't look like they're washing themselves, cleaning themselves, their clothes are dirty, etc. Just doesn't look like they care about their appearance. Intoxicated at inappropriate times, coming in to work with the smell of alcohol off them, or actually drunk. Mood swings, they're irritable, snappy, anger issues, might get very emotional as well. Physical injuries possibly caused by falls, something with a knock on their forehead or cut to their forehead, a fracture to the arm, even you see that. Evidence of substances, evidence of paraphernalia, smell of cigarettes off them, smell of cannabis, etc. Where can we get assistance for somebody that is substance abusing or misuse? So there is a link which is drinkaware.ie. There's also Al-Anon, which is again another free service for friends and family of somebody who has an alcohol problem, and then of course there's the AA itself as well. And then there is naireland.org, which is Narcotics Anonymous. And you get all this information from your GP. If you have an EAP service, you will have access to GP in your workplace through the EAP, and also a counseling service. So recapping again what substance abuse is. So it's basically somebody starts to abuse a substance, whether it be alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, and they're just trying to get away from their own mental health condition. And what are signs and symptoms of that? So we start to see the person not looking after themselves, looking disheveled, poor hygiene, coming into work maybe with a smell of alcohol on them, or some other kind of drug. And then there is the assistance available. Eating disorders. At the end of the session, you'll be able to explain what an eating disorder is, list the types of eating disorders, outline how an individual who has an eating disorder may be recognized, identify an organization to which an individual with an eating disorder can be referred. So what is an eating disorder? First and foremost, it is an unhealthy attitude to food which can take over an individual's life and make them ill. And the three main types are anorexia nervosa. This is somebody who basically undereats, and that's based on the fact that they don't want to put on weight and they feel it's harmful, and they will be very, very underweight. And of course, it can be life-threatening then because they're not getting enough food into their body, and then they can starve to death. Binge eating. So this is somebody who, in a sitting will eat a lot of food, then feels guilty about it, but then will actually continue to binge eat, and that's a pattern. And then obesity is the knock-on of that, which has many health conditions, metabolic syndrome issues, from heart disease to cancer. And then bulimia nervosa is where somebody binge eats, but then actually gets sick to get the food up because they feel guilty about what they're after eating. So a lot of psychology in all three of these, and the person needs help through counseling and through a support system. Also, many different Slimming World, Weight Watchers, loads of different associations that we'll see now later on. So this is a condition where the individual attempts to keep their body weight as low as possible, as I've already mentioned, weight control by under-eating and or over-exercising as well. The individual often believes that any problems they have are caused by their physical appearance. So again, it's about what they're seeing as a psychology, body dysmorphia, if you like. Binge eating commonly starts in the early 20s, involves eating to excess. After the binge, the individual often feels guilty and ashamed. The condition doesn't always lead to significant weight gain. Bulimia nervosa. Like anorexia, the bulimia is a condition where the individual attempts to keep their body weight as low as possible. The individual eats to excess, then purges by vomiting or the use of laxatives. After the binge, the individual often feels guilty and ashamed. The condition doesn't always lead to significant weight gain. Contributing factors to eating disorders. There are a number of factors that lead to an individual developing an eating disorder. These factors may include genetics within the family, changes in their brain chemistry, occupational pressure, the need to feel like they're slim and fit and healthy like everyone else in their direct environment, social pressure, same thing. So you're not lean and mean, so there must be something wrong with you. Cultural expectations. So there's so much in that in the world that we live today, from magazines to media. So signs and symptoms of eating disorder, these include changes to the amount of food being eaten, eating too much or too little, regularly weighing oneself, hiding food, leaving the table after eating, possibly to purge, over-exercising, avoidance of eating around other people, feeling cold and lightheaded. Some of these you may not see if you are in your workplace and this is a colleague. You're only going to know it by virtue of maybe getting to know them, and maybe noticing a weight loss or weight gain. It's really people close to them in their family or loved one that might notice some of these symptoms, if you like. So getting help for eating disorders, GP service, EAP service, therapy services, and then you have bodywise.ie, which is a really helpful. Very often these people need many approaches to targeting their health and overeating or undereating, because there is a huge psychological element to it, and that has to be tackled. It's not a case of them just either losing weight or getting to a healthy place where they're eating healthily, whether it's anorexia or overeating or bulimia. So we just recap there the eating disorders. There's three main ones: bulimia, nervosa, anorexia nervosa, and then binge eating. The signs and symptoms of each, and what help is available, bodywise.ie, Slimming World, Weight Watchers. There's so many different associations out there that can help these people. Self-harming. So at the end of the session, you'll be able to define what self-harm is, give examples of how individual self-harm, outline the short and long-term effects of self-harm, identify an organization to which an individual who self-harms can be referred to. So it is the intentional harming or injuring of oneself. That is self-harm. Self-harm is a coping mechanism for individuals to manage their distressing thoughts and feelings. So basically, they feel by cutting themselves or hurting them, it's almost like a release, and that's why they do it. There are different types of self-harm: burning, cutting, poisoning, biting, hair pulling, use of ligatures, over or under eating, over exercising, or headbanging. So wide-ranging effects, unfortunately, for all of this. Self-harm include fractures, injury to tendons, nerves, blood vessels, and muscles, permanent weakness or numbness in certain areas of the body, multi-organ damage or failure, infections at the site of self-injury, social isolation, poor interpersonal relationships, increasing feelings of shame and guilt and disgust over their self-harming, poor self-esteem and self-image, permanent scarring, suicidal thoughts and behavior, accidental, inadvertent death. So again, the self-harming is probably coming from the fact that there is something in the background, something that's happened to them, whether it's being a guilt over something they've done, or something that's been done to them, or an incident that may have occurred. So yeah, there's a lot of mental anguish around this. These would be the signs and symptoms. So there would be evidence of the person of an injury such as a burn, bruise, or cuts, wearing long sleeve clothing, even in the warm weather, to cover them up, constantly taking time off work, blood on bed sheets or clothing. So assistance for self-harm, first aid or accident emergency, their GP, or if you're a HR, where you can point them in the right direction to either EAP service, their GP, or the Samaritans.ie. So recapping what self-harm is where somebody basically harms themselves, whether it's through cutting, burning, as a form of release. What are examples of how individual self-harm, which we just said, long-term effects of self-harm, lots of damage to the skin, fractures, of course, then there's guilt and shame over it. Suicide crisis, to provide learners with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to recognize and support an individual in suicidal crisis. The risk factors that increase the risk of suicide, recognize warning signs for someone who is suicidal, describe ways to support an individual in suicidal crisis. Suicide is always, seems to be from year to year on the rise. Roughly last year, there was 500 young men that killed themselves. I can't give the stats on how many women did, but again, far too many. And even if the person doesn't kill themselves, very often they can do a lot of damage just by the attempt, whether it's through hanging or through taking sleeping pills or something like that. And again, obviously, where is it coming from? Why do they want to harm themselves? So factors that increase the risk of suicide: family history of suicide or child maltreatment, previous suicide attempt, mental illness or particularly clinical depression, alcohol or other drug misuse, physical illness and chronic pain, hopelessness, impulsiveness, aggressiveness, local epidemics of suicide and isolation. Warning signs for someone who is suicidal: displaying symptoms of clinical depression, talking about suicide or wanting to die, obtaining means of taking steps to find means to kill oneself, withdrawing from others, wanting to be left alone, feeling hopelessness, trapped in a situation that or that there is no reason to live. Engaging in reckless behavior, sleeping too little or too much, displaying extreme mood swings and being severely anxious or agitated. There's so much in this, and if you've never known anybody who's suicidal, it's just looking at the warning signs. I have, unfortunately for me, and it wasn't a good outcome, but suffice to say that a lot of this would have been their clinical depression, thoughts about wanting to kill somebody, previous attempts. They're all the biggies. That, you know, the signs and symptoms are there, and it's just trying to get that person to see a counsellor, their GP, because they may need something prescribed to them, and then getting a psychologist on board. But somebody work in your workplace you think maybe again is in this place is pointing them in the right direction through the EAP and through a counsellor. Sometimes just talking to them can really help. So ways to support someone who's suicidal: opening the conversation by asking some simple direct questions. Asking these questions will help help you determine if your friend or family member is in immediate danger and therefore needs help. It's okay to ask these direct questions. It's okay to use the S word. It's okay to say, listen, you know, you're feeling really down and you seem like you're, can I ask you a question? Are you feeling like self-harming or suicidal? Sometimes you need to ask a question. Do you ever feel so bad that you think about suicide? Yeah. Do you have a plan to die by suicide or take your life? Have you thought about it when you would do it? Have you thought about what your method you would use? Really difficult questions to ask somebody, but you know, you're trying to save their life and point them in the right direction. So assistance, you never leave the person alone. Check, are they under the influence of alcohol or drugs? What's it going to do? Drugs as a depressant is going to make them feel worse. Alcohol is a depressant. And then, you know, they can take drugs to overdose. A suicidal person needs to see a doctor or a health professional immediately. So all the organizations that are there, Samaritans, Pieta, Childline, Teenline, your mentalhealth.ie. So you have them all here at hand. And again, they will be through your EAP service if you have that going on, or your GP. Call 999 or 112 in the event of an emergency. Visit your accident emergency department and talk to your GP. Signposting to different support organizations. Depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, and post-traumatic stress. Improving mental health being to provide learners with the knowledge of ways in which they can improve their own mental health, their own mental well-being, and advise others of the same. Objectives are, by the end of the session, the learner will be able to identify ways in which an individual can improve their mental well-being, explain how good nutrition can improve mental health. Improving mental well-being, social connection, good nutrition, reducing alcohol intake, getting more sleep, exercise, and mindfulness will help keep the mind and body healthy. All important. Good nutrition, as we know, this is fuel for the body. Why? It's good for your mind and it's good for your body. A balanced diet using the food pyramid. So this food pyramid now is still important. Some things less important, but the key things would be, you know, vegetables and fruit. Really important part of a staple diet. White meat, eggs, fish, meat, poultry, all very, very good. Beans and nuts, fat, spreads and oils. Good fats is what we want, and good oils. And what we don't want so much are foods that are high in sugar, high fast carbohydrates, not good at all. Social connection. What is your connection with other people? Why? Loneliness is linked to depression. So the more we have social interaction and connection, the less we are going to feel depressed. How can we reach out to the world and become more connected? Joining a club, becoming a volunteer, and just making time to visit family and friends. So in COVID, a lot of people became very isolated. And if you lived on your own, you could become very isolated. And what we see is people retreating, and then they're not socially as active, and they can be anxious about going out and into the world again, and that may even be about coming back into the workplace. Mindfulness. So paying more attention to the present moment on your own thoughts and feelings and to the world around you. A deliberate and purposeful calming of the mind and body. So there's a lot of talk about mindfulness, and yes, it's really important, but you can find something that makes you feel better, whether that's reading a book, whether it's actually doing meditation, great, maybe it's doing yoga, but it's something that's going to disconnect you from the craziness of the world, from the news, from the media, and just relaxes your body and relaxes your mind. So just coming back to mindfulness, this stimulates chemicals that help to neutralize the harmful chemicals produced by excessive or prolonged stress. So it's all about de-stressing. Deep breathing is great. You don't have to be mindfulness to do deep breathing, but that has a direct knock-on effect on your circulation, on your heart, on your lungs, on your parasympathetic nervous system, calming everything down. Exercise. So find something that you really like, and just do something you like. Don't be a gym bunny if you don't like it. If it doesn't work for you, if you like running, do running. If you like walking, do walking. If you like cycling, do that. It's good for your mind and body, releases endorphins, improves sleep. Absolutely. You're tired now, reduces stress. We should really be doing 30 minutes of some kind of active activity per day. It can be walking, it doesn't have to be going to the gym, etc., etc. Pick an activity that you like. REM sleep. So this is rapid eye movement sleep, and is characterized by rapid eye movements, more dreaming, bodily movement, and faster pulse and breathing. It restores the mind and mood. How? Ensure the bedroom is quiet, dark, and cool and relaxing so that you can enter the REM zone if you like. Remove electronic devices. I'd turn your phone upside down so you can't see the light on it. Avoid large meals before you go to bed. Stop eating at 9 o'clock or before. Don't drink coffee. Don't drink alcohol. And get some exercise. So this is the key to reaching rapid eye movement, which is the deep sleep. So to recap, how can mental health be improved? What is mindfulness, and how does nutrition improve your health? I'm going to stop sharing here now for this is session 2 ending.